You guys really like the tweets that I did recently looking at content and talking about why Google might think that it's helpful. So I thought I would put together a little video as I work through some of the sites that you submitted to me. I asked for people to send me sites that were impacted by the September helpful content update. And I'm going to look at these live, not live, but as I record this video, and maybe my process will help you. So first of all, I want to say that nobody knows what Google did, and this is just me trying to maybe prove my theory or trying to understand more about what it is that Google rewarded as helpful content. This is one of the sites that we'll look at, and all of these sites have given me permission to share about their site and their content. So thank you if that was you. Um, September 14th, 2023 is when the helpful content update rolled out. A lot of sites that I've seen didn't feel the impact until about the 18th or 19th, but certainly if you put and I'm using these are Ahrefs traffic graphs. You definitely would want to use your own. Google Search Console is really the best place to look at clicks, maybe impressions, but probably clicks and also keyword rankings in Search Console. But because these are sites I don't have access to Search Console for, we're going to just kind of take estimates based on what Ahrefs has here. So this particular site was impacted. What does that mean? I'm not going to do a whole talk in this video on how Google determines which content is helpful or not. This is a little part of a presentation that I did for Local U. I'm going to be doing a very similar presentation for SMX, recording it tomorrow, but it'll be live in mid-November, I believe. This is kind of my theory, is that Google takes examples of helpful content and examples of unhelpful content. And this is very simplified explanation here, but basically they put them through a machine learning system that is built to create, the whole goal of this system is to create a model that can predict whether pages are likely to be helpful or not. And they get those examples from Google's quality raters who label those pages. The raters are basically trying to help Google to create a web where content tends to be helpful. And Google gives us these guidelines here on what it is that they say, you should assess your content across these values. And this page is really the page that I have open all the time that talks about what it is that Google's AI systems are built to reward. I've written a ton of stuff on how I think that works, but that's just a really brief explanation because I want to jump into looking at some of this content. So let's look at this site here. This is kind of typical of a site that's been impacted. So what I'm doing here is I'm looking actually, I'm looking at a recent date and comparing this to a time before the helpful content update happened. I could get more specific with those dates, but what I'm looking for is examples of keywords that have declined. And in this case, this is really typical that many keywords have declined just one or two places. And what we usually see is that there are very clear examples of websites or content that Google has started to elevate. Let's look at this keyword here. What is a garage-ready refrigerator? You can see that this site ranked for this, and then at some time between August 28th and September 23rd, so we know the site had a big traffic drop September 14th. That's probably when it happened. The rankings declined. And so this site, if you recall, they had this massive drop. This is basically Google applying a helpful and unhelpful content classification on the site. And it looks like, since the core update, they've declined even further, which it really doesn't matter too much to figure out the difference between the two, because both core updates and helpful content updates are about this list of criteria. There's slight differences, which we could get into, but it doesn't really matter. Whatever we talk about in this video should really help this website. Let's look at the rankings. And again, this is just from Ahrefs. They're estimating the rankings for this keyword over the last couple of years. And this is the site that we were looking at. They did fairly well. Now, who knows? Maybe this is just a dip that they've had before. Maybe they'll recover. But I think it'll be interesting to see who did Google start to elevate. So this site here from USA Today is seeing nice increases. We're going to look at that. And here's another one that Google seems to think, since the helpful content system, that this content is more helpful to the searcher. So let's take a look at each of these pieces of content. And the thing that I want you to do, and this is really difficult because we think like SEOs, we think if you're an SEO, you're trained to try to understand the way that Google's algorithms work and to try to reverse engineer that. Now, if Google's purpose is to use AI to find the content that's most likely to be helpful, then what we need to do is we just need to figure out why is this content likely to be more helpful? And then this site, Garage Transformed, gets a little bit more of a hint of what they could do. So let's take a look at this content. Now, I want to put ourselves in the shoes of somebody who has searched for what is a garage ready refrigerator. Who's doing that search? I mean, maybe somebody's having a conversation. You're sitting on the couch and you're talking to your spouse and you're like, hey, we should get a garage ready refrigerator. And the other person's like, what the heck is that? So that's kind of what I picture, but I don't know the niche that well. So if somebody's doing this search, what are they going to find? We're going to look at this site first, and this is the one that declined. And and you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at it on mobile, just ignore all the code over here. And the reason why I'm doing that is because most people doing this search are probably looking at it on mobile. Okay, that's a little frustrating. And I do think that that can deter people. That's one thing that makes it's not necessarily having a popover as something that is going to make your content instantly be penalized. But when we're trying to figure out in the grand scheme of things whether this page is helpful, that's a bit frustrating. Same with these ads. Google knows that sites need to have ads in order to make money, but this is another thing that's just a little bit frustrating for people. So how does this meet my needs? In the not too distant past, okay, so that doesn't really help me, this content. There's only one problem. If I want to read an article, a little story about what garage ready refrigerators are, this might be the story I wanted to read. Okay, they're designed to work, but like, what are they? Are they just a fridge you put? Okay, it's a standard refrigerator with multiple temperature sensors, heating out. What the heck? Okay, so this makes me go through a lot of work to find out what is a garage ready refrigerator. So let's look at the other two sites that Google started to elevate. And then here's one, garageliving.com. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to look at it. I'll look at that on mobile. Instantly, this answers my question. It's just a mini fridge that you put in your garage. Uh, I don't know that this is all that helpful, but just having the image there is helpful to me. And if we scroll down even further, they're showing this person's garage fridge. I don't know if this was the best query to use, because it's essentially just a fridge in a garage. But still, I hopefully you understand my point is that this content actually got me to my answer faster. Now let's look at the last piece of content here. And now this is on USA Today, which you probably recognize the brand. And that's one of the helpful content questions is this, if someone researched the site producing the content, would they come away with an impression that it is well trusted or widely recognized as an authority on its topic? Now, people would say, well, USA Today is not an authority on garage fridges, but they are generally a well-trusted site or widely recognized. I know we could argue, but when Google is looking for information, if it comes from a source that generally is trustworthy, then that's going to give them a boost up. If you find that you're losing rankings to all these authoritative sites, that's going to be something that's difficult to recover from unless you actually have incredibly more helpful, substantially more helpful content. So, yeah, so here we go. There's more pictures again of what these garage fridges are, and that's not as obtrusive. Oh, and here you go. Now they've got different examples of garage ready fridges. This clearly is more helpful content than we'll go back to the original site. Uh, there we go. This one here, which really, if I'm skimming it, it's not the best picture to answer my questions. Here's another site that was very strongly impacted, and we can see that this is one example where things get really bad on the 18th. But you could see that the helpful content update started rolling out here on the 14th. So the site was definitely impacted, and even worse with now there was a spam update on the 4th, and then there was a core update on the 5th. It will be impossible to say which impacted the site. And again, it doesn't really matter. The site is likely not being penalized because of spam tactics. Rather, the helpful content system has decided that yeah, most of the time this site's content isn't the one that is going to be the most helpful to put in front of people. And then the core update has decided that for whatever reason, core updates sometimes are about Google getting better at understanding user intent. So it'll be interesting to see. I haven't looked at any of this site's keywords yet. All right, so here's one keyword that they lost rankings for: Popeye's apple pie. And you can see that one site comes out of nowhere here to start ranking, although not number one. And let's look now. The site that was submitted to me was One Sweet Harmony. And so between September 11th and September 19th, they lost a couple of rankings. And that's often how helpful content hits go, is you lose one or two positions for rankings. So who did Google start to prefer? This page, Google's kind of always preferred. I don't think that's the best one for us to compare. And here's one that, yeah, started at the same time. Google started to slightly prefer this page. So we're going to look at that. And then here's the one that I think is interesting, even though it hasn't quite started to outrank them. We're seeing this a lot with the helpful content system. I want to show you why I think Reddit was promoted here. If we put ourselves in the shoes of this searcher, Popeye's apple pie, I think there's a couple of intents that could be here. Maybe people are just wondering what it is. Where do I get it? Is it good? And then maybe some people are looking for the recipe, and this is a recipe site. So let's look at the recipe page. All right, that looks helpful. It's got pictures, blah, blah, blah. I think those pictures are helpful. I don't know, are they unique pictures? Google thinks they're frozen pizza snacks. And that is this site. So yeah, it looks like those images are unique to them. So I think that that's a good thing. And a lot of the sites that were impacted by the helpful content update, they're not bad sites. Like this looks like a good site. And it's important to know too, I'm just looking at one page. The helpful content, if you get the classification, it means that overall your entire site is considered generally unhelpful. I didn't think this was horribly unhelpful. I think a lot of people who are looking for the recipe probably would just click jump to recipe. I don't know that I like these. This kind of looks like I get the recipe at the expense of your advertising. And I think if that's something that is throughout all of your recipes, I don't think users like that. And so I think that that could contribute to whether or not your content is helpful. Part of the helpful content documentation talks about page experience and does the content lack an excessive amount of ads that distract from or interfere with the main content? I do think that those ads are a bit distracting, and I would get rid of those. I think that that could be contributing to your problem, but we don't know that for certain. And that's not to say that all ads are bad. I think that you can have ads, but those are probably distracting. Let's look at this page then. And so this is another example where Google has potentially started to prefer authority. It's also important to know that with all that's going on, all of the horrible things that are going on in the world right now, Google has said in their guide to how they fight disinformation that in times of crisis, times where a crisis is developing, that they might prefer, their systems might prefer authority over other factors that they normally do. So some of the changes that we're seeing might be related to just what's going on in the world right now. Still, your losses were, I don't think that Google specifically elevated eat this, not that because of war. But it's something to consider for some of the people who are watching this video. Now, I think what happened here is that Google got better at understanding intent. And some of the people who search for this might want recipes, and others really just want to know about the Popeyes the Popeyes pies themselves. And I think that there's not a lot you can do about this. Your recipe site, you could try creating content. Your content is meant to meet the intent of people who are looking for a recipe. And if Google's decided that the intent of this query has changed, there's not a lot you can do here. All right, Hungarian chicken soup. That seems like one that is a topic that this site should rank well for. And we can see that they did rank, number 3 for it and started to see some declines around May. And then August core update was August 22nd. It's possible, but I think that the declines here are probably due to the helpful content update that was on September 14th, because we know that that's when the site had big drops. So this page has been ranking number 1 for a while. This one used to be behind you, and Google has started to prefer it more, so we're going to look at that. Same with this one. So let's look at all 3 of these pages and put ourselves in the shoes of a searcher again, who has just searched for Hungarian chicken soup. I think most people who search for this would be looking for a recipe. Some might be looking for an image, but people are probably looking for a recipe. So whichever answer, my theory is whichever website gets people to a recipe that they are likely to want to use is probably going to be the one that ranks. So let's look at the site that saw declines. And, I am going to assume that most people act like me and click jump to recipe. And we've got a recipe here with, it's good. There's no, well, there's an image, and I bet you there's images throughout here. I'd love to see, there's nothing that tells me that this image is your image. I mean, I can do a reverse image search, but I don't want to see, I didn't come to this website. If I land on this website, it's not for your professional photography. It's for you as an individual. I mean, it might help to have you in the images, but I'd love to see a picture that looks more like a real person made it and not like it was a photo op, really. So now let's look at the other pages that Google has chosen to prefer. There's another similar type of picture. I do like the fact that she has her photo here, kind of makes it more personal, and Google wants to elevate content that seems to demonstrate experience. And I think it's because soon, anything that you want where you just want a quick answer, you can get that from Bard. I can go to Bard right now, and Bard can give me a standard recipe. Can you make me an image? Sometimes the recipes aren't 100%. Oh, come on now. You can do that, Bard. Show me a picture of Hungarian chicken soup. So I don't really need to go to a website unless I'm going for that personal experience. So this page that Google elevated is really interesting because it, has a little bit of an intro and then it goes right into the recipe, which I know most recipe sites don't want to do because that's really hard to make ad revenue from that. But really, that's what searchers like, and I would be doing that if I had a recipe website. To me, I get the feeling that this is a Hungarian person. Is this Hungarian? Yeah, that's Hungarian. Hungarian person teaching me how to make Hungarian soup. I think that Google's model of helpfulness, we know that it was going to be changed to better reward experience, firsthand experience, and I think that that's often what's happened is that Google is recognizing where you have experience on your topics. This last piece of content, which Google elevated again, I think that's a really nice image. I'm not going to read all those. Chicken and dumpling soup, that's a nice image as well. And a little bit of information about how to make it, about the author. Okay, so people would have jumped to this recipe, and this one doesn't have ads in it. I think, one of the things I think to consider for recipe sites as well, this is just a theory I have, but if Bard can tell me what the basic ingredients for a particular recipe are, then I think it's possible that Google is looking for websites when people are doing a website search that that reflects the general wisdom of the world. And so, what I mean by that is that if this is the best way to make Hungarian chicken soup, I think that Google's getting closer at recommending the content that kind of gets us there faster. I might be wrong on that. And, and AI is something that is continually learning, and there are going to be things that aren't necessarily perfect about Google's rankings, but their goal is to get closer and closer to being an AI answer engine. I realized I forgot I was going to look at why Reddit had popped up in rankings for this is going back to the keyword on Popeye's, was it Popeye's apple pie? Here are people, real people discussing apple pie. So if you're sitting there on your couch and you're having this conversation about, oh yeah, you want some Popeye's apple pie, and somebody's like, what is that? I haven't had it. You do a search, and here are real people talking about it. And you might be like, as an SEO, well, this doesn't actually give me a lot of good information. Yeah, that one's good, but not the best. Um, but these are legitimately real people having conversations about the topic that you searched. And it doesn't rank number one, and there's a reason for that. I think that, again, as Google tells us that they want to better reward experience, experience is real people talking to real people. So hopefully you found that helpful. I'll probably do more videos like this. I'm trying to free up some of my time so that I can talk more about how AI is changing not only Google, but changing the world as well. You can get my newsletter. If you want more of this kind of stuff, my newsletter is at newsletter.mariehaynes.com. This week we talked about a number of things that impacted search. Discover on Google's desktop homepage is a really big deal. all sorts of uses of GTP4 vision that blew my mind, including you can get GPT vision to roast you, and it tried not to roast me, and then it told me that true beauty comes from within. That's kind of mean.